want to thank everybody that is sharing this show, everybody that's watching this show. We've definitely got an increase in traffic recently because of this horrible case and this horrible injustice of the state of Tennessee going after an attorney uh, after winning her case. It seems to be a clear case of retaliation. And just to recap, if you didn't watch our show last week, attorney Tennessee attorney Connie Reguli was required to turn herself in at 10:30 a.m. in the morning for alleged charges that she didn't even know what they were. She didn't get any documentation. She just got a notification, a call that she needed to turn herself into jail after she won a case and got the families reunited once again. And so we just want to thank everybody who's been sharing these videos, who's been raising awareness to this issue, and we want to tell the rest of the story because it hasn't stopped. Connie turned herself in, and we just want you guys to get the full scope of what happens to people when they're brought into this unjust court situation that's usually cloaked in darkness. But there's an opportunity here for people to see that this system is out of control. It needs to be changed, and they don't care who you are. They don't care if you're an attorney. They don't care if you're a doctor. They don't care if you have money. If you don't have money, they're going to come after your kids and target you if they decide they want your children. And anybody that stands in that way is going to have the power of the state coming after them. So today we have Connie back on to share what happened after she turned herself in, and we also have activist Jennifer Wynn, who's been very active on her own dime and her own time out there helping families, trying to fight this system for years. And this dynamic duo are a pair of warriors, and I'm really honored to have you guys on the show today. And so, Connie, I think it's just good to start. Last time, when you signed off, you had to turn yourself in the next day. Let's talk about that. So you showed up to the courthouse, and why don't you give us your take on what transpired?
Okay, so as most people will recall, I think I had talked about, I had gotten a phone call from a Brentwood police detective, and she said there was an outstanding KPS. Oops, getting a little feedback. I'm not sure what the problem is, but she said she had a outstanding KPS for me, and she wanted to make arrangements with me to turn myself in, and I said, fine. And she said, for your client too? Well, my client, Wendy Hancock, lives about 2 hours away because that's where this all transpired. And so I said, well, why don't we do it tomorrow, which would have been Wednesday the 19th. Why don't we do it tomorrow at 11 o'clock? I was very cooperative with her. I said, I can get Wendy here. You don't have to put her in a police car and put her in the back of a police car and handcuff her and drive her all the way to Brentwood. I'll have her here, but she's 2 hours away. Let's make it 11. So after I did that, I did a lot of posts. I reached out to a lot of people, contacted some news stations. Other people contacted news stations. And so I got down there at about 10:30, and by 10:30, I had made a couple posters, and right by then there were only 3 or 4 people that had arrived. And I got to the front of the police station, and Detective Lori Russ walked out, and the Fox 17 was there already. And as soon as he saw her walked out, he jumped out of the car and got up to me and turned on his camera. And then she goes, we're not going to make this a dog and pony show. You're going to come in and get booked right now. I was like, and so
how did that go over?
Well, actually, fortunately, Marie Santos was there with her live. She was conducting a live the entire time. So you can see that whole discourse between the two of us, because I didn't relent. I was like, look, we had an agreement, 11 o'clock. And she goes, but you're here now, and I'm going to book you now. And I said, look, we had an agreement 11 o'clock. I'll go across the street and come back. No, that's not going to happen. And so she reached over and she touched me on the arm, and I said, please don't touch me. And when I said that, she backed off. She went over in the corner. I did an interview with Fox 17, and then she walked back up, and she's like, okay, now we're going to go back in there. So I went ahead and I went back, and I'm not going to get tased or anything. So I went ahead and I went back. We posted several pictures as well as the video on that encounter to the Brentwood police station. Now, that all they had was a KPS. I still, as we sit here today, have not seen an indictment. So a KPS is a single sheet of paper, and it says what that you have an indictment, and then it has some things listed, but you can't tell by looking at it if it's one charge or if it's more than one charge. It just lists them, and then it has a bond amount, and it says ROR and is signed by judge. So even though they're accusing me of being some felon, a local judge from the county that I live in certainly must not have thought I was a very dangerous criminal, because my whole processing was ROR. So, but then I had to go back there and get the book, and then they transported me in a police car in handcuffs all the way down to the Williamson County Sheriff's Department, where I had to go through booking as well. Another photograph chained to the wall. I mean, it took, 4 hours, even though I was ROR. And finally, Wendy came, and they did allow Wendy and I to be transported together down to the Sheriff's Department. So,
But they chained you to a wall.
they chained me to a wall. Yeah, put my little wrist up there and put a handcuff on it and chained me to the wall. It's, lockdown room. It's like, I don't know where I'm going to go, but they chained me to the wall.
Wow. And so, Jennifer, you have been working with families for years. If you want to share a little bit about yourself and just with this story, is this some common behavior that you see with DCF, not just with attorneys, but just in general, the harassment? I mean, to me, it seems like chaining someone to a wall when they're about to be released anyways on their own recognizance seems like, an intimidation tactic. Is that the pattern of behavior that you've seen through your activism?
Oh, I would say absolutely. It's called bullying. That's what it's called. It's called intimidation, and they want to scare you. They want to make sure that you are very aware you're not in control, and they call the shots. I mean, I've seen it with, and Raymond, I think you have, with the Williams case. We've seen the Williams be gagged. Every Sink case is always gagged. This is how they operate in darkness, is because they don't want anyone to shed the light. But I've seen attorneys, in fact, I've talked to a few in the past who have been disbarred, who have come after CPS, DCF. Um, so it doesn't really surprise me. It does, I guess, to a certain degree, because I know Connie, and I know her tenacity, and I know her willingness to do whatever's right. So I think they bit off a little more than they can chew, inevitably, but they want to flex their muscle. I mean, let's face it, DCF trumps any other court out there. They trump criminal, family law, divorce court, it doesn't matter. A sink case will rule. And so they have flexed their muscle because, again, it's retaliation for Connie standing up for her clients, getting those children to come home, and then letting them know she's going to take legal action against them for all the wrongdoings that they've done. So it was just a simple flex. We're going to chain you to a wall, make you scared. What they don't know is they don't know Connie, and she's not scared.
Sure, sure. And I've seen her out there fighting for years, and I guess if I wasn't aware of these activities in the family court system, I would ask, why would they be offended that a mom got her kid home? Like, why? An average citizen might think, well, that's kind of crazy. Why would someone retaliate for her doing her job? So, what would be their motive, Connie, that you believe or you've seen in other cases to be angry about someone getting children home to parents because the parents did what they needed to do to get that to happen?
Well, you in this particular case, this is a family who's been harassed for 10 years.
Oh,
They
wow.
have had a DCS investigation for every year for like 10 years. And they've gone to school, they've pulled their kids out, they've interviewed her kids without her knowledge. And so in about 2000, and she didn't know me back then. It's a small county, it's about 2 hours from here. The first time we got together was because in 2015, they did file a petition against her, and she did locate me. She had become involved in Family Forward. We started that around 2014. She hired me. I went to court like once, and we had another court hearing scheduled, and they dismissed the case by an email without us going to court. However, DCS wasn't done with her, and so they started another investigation. So they started this investigation in 2018, and I I'm just gonna be honest. I did everything right. I contacted the DCS caseworker and left her a message and said, my client has an attorney. Don't talk to her. Call me. We'll set up a meeting with you. We'll find out if there are any safety issues. And then a detective got involved. I called the detective. I actually had a conversation with him, and I told him, I said, don't talk to my client without her having an attorney present. And then I said, is there any emergencies, anything I need to know about? And he said, no. I mean, they so completely went behind my back. They knew she had an attorney. They knew we were cooperating with the investigation. They knew I had called the clerk's office to find out what they were doing. And they did. I mean, this is the
But
epitome of secretness.
But let me say this, because there's one very valuable point that you left off. The fact, this gives you an indication of how this system actually operates. This ex parte order was signed by a judge in a different county.
Yes.
It was signed, the order to pick up the child that the officer testified to, that I played the recording for you all about the other day. The officer testified the child was clean, had just got out of the shower, had a towel on her head. The house was clean. She was in no harm, no visible injuries of abuse whatsoever. And a judge from a different county signed that ex parte to come and remove this child. Now,
sorry, go ahead, Jen.
If that doesn't describe to you the amount of corruption that we're dealing with, on top of the fact we have federal courts telling social workers it's not okay for you to lie.
Yeah.
So,
I don't
Connie,
know what else will.
Just to add to that, because there may be people that this is the first time they're being exposed to this. So the government just can't come in whenever they want and interrogate your children or come into your
yes,
house
they can.
or take your children legally, can they?
Yes, they do.
Well, they do. I mean, they do. And the people need to understand that these agencies have their own lobbyists, and they have private contractors with their own lobbyists. And because we have been asleep at the wheel, they have gone in over and over and over every year to increase their power. The constitutional standard is that families have the rights of integrity, constitutional rights to integrity, constitutional rights to privacy, and that you cannot interfere with that unless there is some immediate risk of harm. That's the constitutional standard. But what they've done is they have bastardized it. By now they have a whole series of laws called orders to control conduct. So they can go to, if DCS calls you and you don't return a phone call, they can go to court and get a court order to control your conduct and compel you to come in and talk to them and look at your home. I used to be a criminal prosecutor when I first became a lawyer. I mean, the thought that a detective could go to court and get a court order to compel you to come in and be interviewed by a detective, I mean, it's just unheard of. And yet they do it to parents and families every single day of the year.
Every day.
Wow.
Every
and
day.
So, okay, here's Connie. She's doing her job. She's being a good attorney. She fights for this family. She's outraged at this pattern of abuse of the court system, abuse of the DCF reporting system, and she gets these children home. And now all of a sudden she finds out. Now, was this a contentious case? Was there a lot of back and forth in the court of the social workers, or did it seem like it was moving and progressing like a normal case? What triggered these people, do you believe, that all of a sudden they were like, we need to stop this attorney?
Well, they were like that from the day they knew I was in the case. I mean, they were like that from the day that they knew that Wendy was going to call on me again, because I had represented her before. And I fought every step along the way. And I did not know, not only did they do the ex parte order on us and not even give me the courtesy of a freaking phone call to say, we're going to go ahead and get a petition, because I would have been calling the judge. Of course, I probably would have started with the right judge, which would have been the wrong judge because they went to another county to get a judge. But they didn't even give me the courtesy of a phone call to say, we're going to file a petition. I called the caseworker, I called her supervisor, and I called the regional office, and nobody would call me back and talk about it. And then the next morning, that was on Monday afternoon. The following morning at 9 o'clock, they had a hearing I didn't even know about until much later. And they didn't even give me the courtesy of a phone call there. Even if they got the ex parte order, they could have called me and said, can you be in court in the morning? No, they didn't do that either.
Right, because it's supposed to be in the best interest of the children, and it's supposed to be about, getting help for a parent if they really need help. So instead, you have this adversarial relationship, which doesn't even seem to make sense unless there's an ulterior motive underneath this process, which we'll get to. So they grab Connie. They're mad. Connie got these kids home. They can't victimize this family anymore. They put a warrant for your arrest. You show up like you're supposed to. You're not a risk. You set a time for them. They try to move the time, and I saw some of those videos. Jen, you said you made a video. Connie, you talked about some videos. Where can people watch these other videos that you were just talking about you turning yourself in, and then the video you were talking about? Connie,
Well, so under the Family Forward Project on Facebook, all of the live videos that I do, I mark as announcements. That's a special place on the page right when you enter that group. There's a place that says announcements, and you can click on that. There's 50 announcements in there, and you can go back. And Wendy and I have done about 4 or 5 live videos about what's going on. Wendy is so glad her children are back and her children are safe. It was hell. It was hell for 10 months. And she wants the system changed. And here's what I deal with a lot of parents. I mean, I have more than one case. I have a lot of cases. So many families are so shell-shocked by what happened. All they want to do is go away and hide. And I have families like that. I'm sure some people go like, well, why should you be talking about your clients? I'm like, there are certain people that want their stories told and want it told from my perspective because they know they can't answer all the questions. They know that people don't know what an ex parte order is. They know that people don't know what a preliminary hearing is. They want it told from my perspective, especially when they've been abused by the system.
And DCF doesn't want that perspective told because they want people to believe that if they're involved, then it's always for the right reason, which we know that that's not necessarily true. And so, Jen, if people wanted to watch the videos you're talking about, how do people find you and find those videos?
They can go to my Facebook page, which is Jennifer Wynn for Kansas. Most of everything that I put on my page, I also put on my Facebook, which is Jennifer Wynn. So I try, and I think Connie and I go, we make sure that we're sharing and cross sharing so that we can get the information out there. But the other thing I want to allude on is what you said just a moment ago. You said that the disposition is of most Americans that if the state took your children, you did something really wrong. And we have to get educated because that is not at all what is happening. What is happening to our children is they have become profitable under ASFA, which is American Safe Families Act from 1997, that incentivized the removal and separation of a child to foster homes. And like I see in Wichita, I've got another woman, another social worker who's trying to open a for-profit group home. Which is not the answer. The answer is to stop taking so many children, especially when we know by way of the Harvard study that it causes permanent brain damage, permanent anxiety, long-term PTSD, long-term. I mean, these are this type of trauma we now know kills brain cells in our developing children. And
Yeah.
it is not true. These agencies are not taking children because we have 500,000 parents abusing them across our country. That is not the case. That is false in every stretch of the word.
It is false. And the national stats show that 85% of the children taken are taken under the ambiguous term of neglect. I looked up Tennessee's stats, and when I went and spoke to I've been doing so much in the past year and making so much noise locally. That's another reason that they want to silence me. But I went and I spoke at the committee, the legislative committee, which is supposed to be our oversight committee. And I told them Tennessee stats showed that 65% were neglect and drug use. And I said, and I told them, I said, you know what? I said, that drug use, I know it sounds really bad, and it could be somebody who's hooked on meth, but it could also be somebody who smokes pot after work, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. Absolutely. And
so
let's be clear. I also want to make sure that people understand the statistics when it comes to what happens to our children once they're taken. So, and don't take my word for it. Don't take Connie and Raymond's word for it. Go look, do your homework. Because when you find the lawsuit in Missouri that was just settled 3 days ago, or last Friday, as a matter of fact, I believe, they were drugging with pharmaceutical drugs 85% of the foster care children that they're removing.
Wow.
And ask yourself, why are they doing that? They're
right.
doing that, and 5-year-olds are addicted to Xanax because they want their mommy.
Mhm.
They want their
Right, and
daddy.
they get extra money. They get extra money for kids that they can
Absolutely.
classify as
Yep.
special needs. So they'll give them a
Yep.
bogus diagnosis and then back that up by medicating these kids. I'm really glad that lawsuit went through. I'd encourage people to look that up. So let's roll back a little. So Connie, here you are, chained up like a dog, like you're about to break out everybody from the jail. And they won't even give you the indictment. I mean, you think you're an attorney, you know what to do with it. Why can't they give you the paperwork? And so that wasn't the end of the story. You started doing a couple lives. Obviously, the lives are out there of when you turned yourself in, and I've seen it. And the officer, obviously, they want to try to run some interference so the media wouldn't get involved because they're trying to manipulate the whole process where only one side can have their story told, which is the state, and then they do what happened next to all these families. So you get notification that you're talking too much, and what did they want to do to you?
Well, I was going to see if I could pull it up because actually I haven't even read the whole thing myself. I will say that always this week in July, which is my birthday week, is the week I take off. This is my vacation week every year. So this happened. This was kind of my birthday present from them, I guess. But this happened just like 2 days. Okay, so I got it emailed to me. Here, let's pull it up. July the 18th. Oh my gosh. So wait a minute. This is wild. I just noticed this. So this letter from the clerk, wow, is dated July the 18th, which is the day before I got a book. Okay. And it is a gag
Oh
order.
wow. So
It
they
says
had this
it's
for you
placed
ready to
on the
go.
docket. Let me see here. Hold on. It's mailed. I don't know where it's mailed to. Here's what the state of Tennessee said. I'm just going to read part of this here. So state of Tennessee is trying to, would move the honorable court for a gag order prohibiting the parties in this matter from talking to the media or the public regarding the case. As grounds, they would show. And then it says that defendant Connie Reguli has appeared in online interviews regarding the facts of this case. See attached recordings, which of course I don't have a copy of, but apparently they have like recorded or downloaded some of the videos. The statements made by defendant Reguli pose a substantial likelihood of prejudicing a fair trial. I mean, can you imagine? Defendant Reguli has used online platforms to ask her advocates to show support for her by gathering at the Brentwood Police Department at the time of her arrest and in subsequent court proceedings. The state avers that such are attempts to obstruct the orderly court process and pose a substantial
Wow.
likelihood of prejudicing the trial. Reguli has made inflammatory statements about DCS stealing children for profit. In this matter stems from a court order placing a minor in DCS custody, and such comments pose a substantial likelihood of prejudicing a fair trial. Reguli has made public statements alleging that the charges against her are in retaliation and an attempt to impede a lawsuit she plans to file in federal court. Reguli has met with members of the local media to discuss the facts of the case, increasing the amount of publicity surrounding the criminal matter.
Hmm.
So, and they filed this. How did they serve it? So apparently they filed this before I was even booked.
Wow, and I even saw that previously, and I didn't notice that. So I want people to take note here, and here's a plea I want to put in here that if you're a journalist, dig into this story. If
Yes.
you're an advocate, if you're just an American, and this outrages you, we need you to share this video. We need you to share their live videos. Get on Facebook, share the Family Forward Project, because I tell you what, after this video, they might really, really try to gag her quickly because and
Oh,
just look at it. They don't what they don't want is Connie's side to be told. Here we are showing people that these courts operate in secrecy, that they gag people, that try to tell what's happening to them in the court system because they don't want the game to be over. They don't want their activities of manipulating the legal process, of denying people due process, the lies that fly. And so they have this ready to go before they even told Connie that she was going to go to jail, but somewhere it must have got messed up and they didn't serve it till afterwards. So please share these videos, and and we think it's very important. So Connie, you go out and you share that, hey, they're trying to gag me. This isn't something uncommon. Jen, have you seen them try to gag people in this court system? Is it
oh, I've
crazy to
I've got
say?
parents. I've got parents that have been thrown in jail for posting their pictures of their children. I've got
Mhm.
parents that have been literally gagged and threatened they'll never see their children again. And don't forget,
That was
these
me.
agencies, I know, these agencies actually require that you sign away your First Amendment rights.
Yeah,
That's what
and
they
they
do.
actually, I was pretty surprised they didn't gag us. We caught them trying to do a voluntary proposed order. I don't know if you remember that. We all chuckled and said, like, yeah, we're going to sign that. But Connie, what about yourself? Do you see this as a common tactic to bully parents into silence? Uh, the abuse of this gag order process, like they, as far and anyone can go watch these videos. You didn't share any details about these children or the details in particulars really about this case. So, how often do you think they try to utilize these unconstitutional gag orders to silence parents and now apparently attorneys?
Well, they try to use them in juvenile court all the time. And in Tennessee, they rely on two different things. One is it's Tennessee 37-1-153, which says that the records are not open to the public. So all that means is that, Jennifer Wynn can't walk down to the court in Davidson County and ask for the record, to look at the record on one of my cases, right? All it says is they're not open to the public. And then there's a rule, a juvenile court rule, that says that the proceedings are, what does it say? I can't remember the exact language. I think it might use the word confidential. I can't remember. But, I have argued, and I've argued to the court that just because the records are confidential, just because the proceedings are not open to the public, does not mean that parents cannot talk about their family life and their case and their, what's happening to them in the court system. Now, in Wendy's case, they did put a gag order on me in the juvenile court matter. So we had done about 3 lives from August until November. And then in November, the judge put a gag order on us. We were getting ready to get into some evidentiary hearings. So we shut up, we didn't go live. And then on February 22nd, the court entered a final order and we went live again. And, of course, they try to say we're in violation of it. But technically, the rule is when you have a final order, if it does not encompass other interlocutory orders, it's not part of the final order. So we did another live. Then they tried to put us in for contempt. This whole thing with this criminal is just to shut me up more. It's just to shut me up because they believe if I have a criminal case pending, hanging over my head, that I'll stop talking about it. And we cannot stop talking about it. We cannot.
We
And
cannot let fear.
all the time. We have 12,000 people on Family Forward Project. Every day, somebody posts, my lawyer won't represent me. My lawyer won't present evidence. My lawyer won't defend me. I don't know what an ex parte order is every single day. And this is what I stand up for.
And this is where I think that people need to understand how we have gotten here. The way we got here, and in Kansas, it's a little different, Connie. And I've actually posted the forms that they require these parents to sign. And it specifically states in that form, you're not allowed to talk about this on social media. You're not allowed to post photos of you're visiting your children from, their visitation centers. But people need to understand something, and that is they are controlling these parents. The reason we don't hear from them is because they have their children. They
Exactly.
have the most valuable thing to them on the face of this planet, and they dangle those children and go, if you tell anyone what we're doing to you, you will never see your children again. And that
Exactly.
is
and,
what they
and I
do every
and
day.
I could testify to that. And I just I'm thankful to the Lord that he allowed my wife and I to recognize that these people had no intention of giving us due process in our case. So we went all the way. We weren't willing to allow that manipulation to work, but it works for a lot of parents, and it's understandable because they're telling them you'll never see your kids again. And people need to understand that if you have never been through this process and you are a parent that has not abused or neglected your child, and you have these people using your kids as a means to manipulate you to get their way while they're not having any intention of returning them, it is an agonizing process. I've been through some hard times in my life, but I can tell you, I have never suffered emotionally, and I know my children haven't, except under the tyranny of this system. And evil uses darkness. They like darkness. They don't want their deeds to be exposed. But that's not the end of it. So you get this order that now we've realized was actually written before they even arrested you. They had their little plan all in place. But then something happened today. Are you okay with talking about that, Connie?
Yeah, and so this is a motion that I just read to you. It's not an order, but they were asking. I just now realized. I just now realized that they filed this. So I had a conversation with Protect for Us on the 18th of July and set up with her the time to go in at 11 o'clock the next morning. They have to be stalking me on social media
Oh, they
to
are.
know what's in that motion.
They are.
Oh,
They
That's
I'm
that's
sure.
have
given.
to
And
be
I'm sure they're
stalking me on
watching it.
social media.
I'm sure they're
So
watching it now. And I'll say to them what I believe both you would agree. We're not going to stop. But
Amen.
sorry.
yeah,
We're
So
not.
what happened, Connie? What happened?
so so they filed that before they even booked me, and they didn't even tell me then. They didn't even tell me when they booked me that they had filed this. So this morning, and like I said, I'm on vacation this week. I get a message from another attorney in my office. She says an email came in from the court. I'm going to forward it to you so you can read it while you're on vacation. So I get this email and I open it, and it's an email from the judge. It's an email. Now, keep in mind, I've not been arraigned yet. I have not been provided a copy of the indictment. I have not been to court. I have not had an opportunity for my attorney to make an appearance on this case yet. When you are in a criminal matter, the first court thing you do is an arraignment where you're handed a copy of the indictment so you can see what you're charged with and you plead
Right.
not guilty. And then the next thing is there's a series of things that happen, and it takes a few months for those things to happen. You're entitled to ask for the state's discovery, and the state, if you ask for discovery, the state has a right to ask for discovery from you. And then that takes 4 or 5 weeks. And then you have a right to do pretrial motions once you've exchanged discovery. That takes 4 or 5 weeks before you even think about setting a trial. And some of those pretrial motions, we are named as co-defendants in this case. Some of those pretrial motions are motions to sever. A defendant can file a motion to sever two co-defendants. The state can try to seek a motion. Okay, so none of those things have happened. I haven't been arraigned. I don't have discovery. We've not done pretrial motions, which is very serious suppression issues. And I get this email from the judge, and it says, "Good morning," and it's sent to me and the district attorney. It says, "I've learned that the subject case has been assigned to me by routine case distribution process. I have been advised that arraignment is scheduled for July 31st as part of the regular monthly grand jury arraignment docket. Under our rotation system, it will be Judge Johnson's turn to handle that particular docket. I also received a chamber copy of the state's motion for a gag order. Now, let me tell you, motions are filed. You don't file chamber copies, okay? This is special, okay? The fact that they would file a chamber copy.
Well, before you go on, it's special because no defendant ever gets an email from a judge either, right?
Well, but let's not go. I mean, just the fact that you don't send chamber copies, okay? He also doesn't mention in here that it was filed before I was even served. Okay, so it says, obviously, no hearing on the state's motion should take place until after Ms. Reguli has been arraigned. Nevertheless, I believe it is only fair for the state to know that I do not find the arguments advanced in the written motion to be persuasive. So he's denying the motion in an email, I guess. Rather than restricting Ms. Reguli's First Amendment rights, I believe any hypothetical prejudice to the state might suffer in the absence of a gag order can be mitigated by a speedy trial. This is from the judge. During the week of criminal motion docket I held today, so that was Monday, I granted a continuance, and it gives the name of the case, for a 4-day jury trial on September 9th. Therefore, those dates which were not previously available are now open on my calendar for a criminal trial. That's like 5 weeks from now, right? So
but you have to they don't even know if you're going to plead guilty or not guilty.
Yeah,
they're just running.
Wait, there's more. Yeah, there's more. The most efficient disposition of this case would be for Ms. Reguli to waive arraignment pursuant to the procedure set out in local rules, for the charges against her to be severed for trial from those brought against her co-defendant, for the motion for gag order to be denied, and for a scheduling order to be entered, setting the case for September the 9th. Please advise me promptly with a copy to adverse party of your respective positions regarding the above proposed schedule.
He's a lunatic.
So if there's any attorneys watching this, please pick your jaw up off the floor.
Right.
And this is not surprising behavior. You know, one thing in all these cases I've seen that it's very hard to prove is that there's this collusion and discussion and a lot of ex parte conversation between parties, usually with the state and the ad litems and the people that are against the parents, all sending emails and talking and chatting on the phone. And it's kind of coming to a head here in your case that it's such a common behavior in these kind of cases. I used to tell it to Jen that these people are so used to not acting right and obeying the law and the rules and the Constitution that they can't even do it when the media is watching. And so for people that don't know the law, how inappropriate is this process that they're trying to initiate?
Well,
and if you don't want to discuss it, don't, but I mean, how uncommon is this?
Well, I would say a few things. So first of all, I have never heard of a judge emailing a criminal defendant personally. Okay. Right now, I'm a criminal defendant, and the judge is sending an email to the criminal defendant. And then the judge is recommending that the criminal defendant waive arraignment. I don't know what he's thinking about discovery and pretrial motions. There is no way that can be done in 5 weeks, because here's, the state's going to ask if in a criminal case, the state is not entitled to ask the defendant for discovery unless you ask the state for discovery. So of course we're going to ask the state for discovery. So I'm going to assume they're going to send some discovery request to me. Maybe they won't. But also in the meantime, we will have the federal lawsuit filed as well. So I was appalled to get this email. I was appalled that the judge would be emailing a criminal defendant even before arraignment.
And not just emailing you, coercing a schedule that he wants you to make applicable, regardless of discovery, regardless if you haven't even been arraigned. He wants you to waive that. He wants you to waive it all. Just be in court on September 9th and let's do a speedy trial and get this over with. I mean, I mean,
Which
when I'm
basically,
just going to tell you all, when Connie, when Connie called me and told me what transpired this morning, I didn't have words. I couldn't even speak. I just kept starting to say something and just stopping because I'm trying to compute how this is even happening, and no one is even batting an eye or stepping up to the plate. And this is not a new, and I will say this, Connie, it is not, Raymond's right. Ex parte communications, what a judge wants, he'll tell the social workers, the social worker tell the prosecutor, they'll all agree on what they're going to do, and it's done. There's no due process. There's never due process for any of these families. No jury trial, no, none of that. So it's appalling. It's insanity. And I want people to wake up and realize that what they think is not at all what's happening.
Exactly.
Not at all.
well, I really thank you both for coming on. And, I want people to really understand that this is not a light thing for Connie to come on and share these things. I mean, literally, they are trying to put her freedom, her ability to be an attorney, uh, on the line here. And this is one of the reasons why I believe it's very hard to get attorneys to come in alongside and help families in the manner that they need, because in a way, they know they're jeopardizing their career. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying they realize the nature of the beast,
Yes.
and they're trying to navigate these shark waters themselves, and they're not trying to wreck their entire career over one family. And that may seem callous, but the fact of the matter is, that's what's happening. These attorneys are getting their whole careers wrecked over trying to actually do their job and help a family. And so Connie really, really needs people's support right now. And so Connie and Jen too, what are the next steps? Are there any plans to move
Well, I mean,
forward? Are you still
obviously, I'm going to Tennessee. And once Connie gets a little further, we know that the 31st is the arraignment. So, and I want everyone that's there in Tennessee, you guys need to get up. You need, parents, stop hiding in fear and get up, because there's absolutely safety in numbers. And Raymond, we demonstrated that many times. Stop letting fear control you, and come out and let's stop this. But I'm going to Tennessee when we're ready for trial. Connie will give me that signal. There will be a huge, massive protest. I will have banners. I will have pictures with the judge. I mean, I'm going to call them all out. Raymond, my tactic and my style is
yes, I do.
exposing the truth. And I will expose every prosecutor. I will expose every social worker. I might even show up at your homes, on your public sidewalks. So I will be relentless. You want to come after one of my heroes, it won't be without a fight. I assure you of that.
And just to put it out there on the record, none of this is an attempt to sway the judicial process. I'm a firm believer all of this needs to be public anyways. I
Yes,
believe that the
absolutely.
public should have access to these files. It's easy
Absolutely.
to redact identifying information, and the public should be able to peruse the strategies in the courts and the records about what is transpiring in these secret courts. And so, Connie, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, or help you out, or talk to you, or maybe even come alongside as an attorney to defend you, how can they get in touch with you, and how can they follow more closely if they don't want to wait for an update from this show? How can they follow you on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
So, and I do want to say, so I want people to put their energy in the right place. So the arraignment is the first step. And I anticipate that I will probably waive my appearance on that. I actually have a trial that I've got to represent a family in another county that day. So I've already talked to an attorney about this, and I anticipate that we will waive. However, I'm not going to agree to sever the case. I'm not going to waive discovery. we're going to get discovery exchanged, etc. And then there are constitutional issues that are going to come up. And I think very soon we're going to, I've already talked to some, local news knows what's going on. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to file motions to have cameras in the courtrooms, to have it recorded and broadcast so that people can see what's going on. People need to understand this. This is so critical that people understand that the courts can take children on ex parte orders. And I want to say that the children are home, the case is dismissed. I want to make that loud and clear, because the main allegation that they made in that case was that my client was a drug dealer and a drug addict, and they could not produce any evidence. And when I did an argument to the court, I said, Your Honor, this is felony criminal behavior to make these charges against my client. Nobody did a search warrant. Nobody followed any criminal investigation protocol. They just put hearsay information down that they swear to, which is ridiculous, and then they can get an ex parte order. These kids were removed for 10 months, 6 placements, 4 schools, shipped 300 miles away. Nobody even came to see them for 30 days. They removed them from those homes that were 300 miles away because there were needles. The kids were screamed at. They were denied food. And DCS picked them up with their clothes in a plastic bag and dropped them off at another foster home with their clothes in a plastic bag. Did not even walk inside to see what that foster home was like. So, they can talk about how, oh my gosh, we got to help children. Let me tell you what else they did. Both of these 2 children, including a 12-year-old girl, was taken for an HPV vaccine while there was an ex parte order, and we hadn't even had a probable cause hearing. There's supposed to be a probable cause hearing in 72 hours. Our probable cause hearing from an ex parte dated August the 13th was December the 7th. Okay, you got that? How many days is that? Like 98 days, right? And on an ex parte order, no probable cause hearing, they vaccinated these children with a very highly controversial vaccine. So,
outside of the parent's authority, which is just another methodology they utilize to let the parents know we can do whatever we want to your children and there's nothing you can do about it. And, I applaud you for getting those kids back, Connie. Jen, you're spinning all over the place down there. What's going on?
Oh, sorry.
But
I was
hey,
moving around. I was getting ate up by mosquitoes, man.
Oh yeah, Kansas mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So Jen, if people want to follow you, and also, this is not, from your experience, you've been doing this for years, this is not uncommon behavior, is it?
No.
From a court system?
No.
Like is Connie a special case, maybe as an attorney, but in terms of
No.
the abuse of power and the gag orders and the things she's sharing about actually doing harm to children, in your experience, is that common or uncommon?
This is very common. I see this more times than not. These
And you're in a different
children,
state.
yeah, and I'm in Kansas. And
Okay.
what we see here in Kansas is we see rubber stamping judges signing off on ex parte hearsay to come and remove your child, regardless if there's no evidence, regardless if the child comes out of the shower with a towel on her head, clean, free from abuse, loving home, loving her mom. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They take those children and traumatize them anyway. I can't tell you how many children that have been taken, yours included, Raymond. Once we even get them home, and the average time in Kansas is 18 and a half months. That's with hearsay, folks. Hearsay. 18 and a half months. Your child is medicated, removed from grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, doesn't matter. And the reality is it's money. Those children are worth about $150,000 a year each, as long as they're not placed with kin. That's the reality. Don't take my word for it. Go read ASPA.
Well, I want to thank you both very much for coming on, and I really hope that people take this serious. And I would encourage you to share it and ask people to watch the whole video, watch the past video. Just don't click and get a few things out of it, but really, as a citizen of the United States of America, understand, part of my thankfulness in this crisis at the border is we're getting all these experts coming out saying family separation it hurts children
Yes.
and hurts them bad, and they're coming out with all this data of what it does to the brain and what it
Yes.
does to their development, which is great. But newsflash, this has been going on for decades in our country to our own citizens who are protected by a constitution that doesn't seem to exist to the family court process. And
Correct.
I thank both of you for exposing this and fighting this. And Connie, you'll be in our prayers. Is there anything you guys want to close with? Anything you want to share that we might have missed, Connie?
Well, you had asked me about contact. So the Family Forward Project is the Facebook group. I do have, I think it's Family Attorney TN. I do have Twitter. I don't use it a lot. I do have a YouTube, just Connie Reguli. That gives you a really good history of a lot of things that I've done over the past 4 years, a lot of places I've spoken. I've been to several events. I've had news stories out. People need to go to that and learn some history, and then follow Family Forward Project. And we'll be posting events there. I'll be following up with you, of course, and, trying to do something, maybe pretty regular, whatever we have to do, weekly, bi-week, every other week or something, so that we can just kind of keep people posted. I have been
And
working today, even though I am on my vacation, on the federal lawsuit. Right now I have 16 defendants. So, as a federal lawsuits go, they're very, very tedious. You have to be very, very cautious to make sure you get all the legal parameters met. So that's our next goal here. And I want to add, just kind of close with this too. I don't come into this particular court system as a newbie. Okay. The system that they have me charged in, the county that they have me charged in, is a county that I practiced law in for 18 years. Okay. I know the judges there. I know the attorneys there. I know I've complained about, especially the juvenile court judge, I've complained about her before and her conduct and her behavior and what people have told me and how she treated my family. I know this particular judge. I've been in courtrooms with him. I've heard things that he said and done. I have a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit against this county right now for a child being sexually assaulted in a juvenile detention center, and the
Wow.
same district attorney's office screwed up the case so bad, even though they had DNA evidence, screwed up the case so bad that this man has walked free. So, there's this particular thing has so many things going on around it that I can't even express to people here, but they need to understand how huge this is, for us to expose, how huge it is to get good representation, how huge it is for people to understand what is happening to children in the for-profit foster care industry.
yes.
I
Well,
think that is a marvelous note to end on. Jen, thank you for joining us this evening. Connie, thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to revisit this issue again. We're going to be watching very closely to make sure that you get due process and your constitutional rights honored, and really hope that this blows the cover off some of this behavior all over this country. So thank you for joining us this evening, everyone. And we will be live again this Sunday at 7 p.m. And we hope to see you then. So thank you for joining us on this episode of We Hold These Truths.